Hi, everybody. Welcome to Lead at Any Level Live this week. I've got some weird stuff going on with my sound and my lights, but hopefully you will stick with me anyway because I have some great stuff to share today. I want to welcome you from wherever you're tuning in, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Please leave me a comment and let me know who you are and where you're watching this and where you are in the world. I would really appreciate it. It's always nice to know that I'm not alone. And if you're watching this on replay, by all means, leave a comment. Let me know when you watch the show, and I will try to make sure that I comment on everything, reply to all the comments, and answer any questions you have about this topic today. So the topic today is, where do we begin? And I get this question a lot. A lot of people in organizations that promote from within say, we would love to do something about diversity and inclusion, but we just don't know where to start. And this comes from a lot of places, right? There are a lot of different triggers for this kind of conversation to happen in an organization. Maybe you're noticing that turnover is high in your organization, or maybe you're noticing that turnover is higher for your company than for others in your industry, or specifically your industry has higher turnover than other industries that are near and ancillary to you. Now, before I go too much further, I want to stop and ask you not only to share with me where you're coming from, but also please share this live or share this recording with someone in your organization who's worried about turnover, because I'm going to share you the exact process I go through to help my clients in addressing these problems, in, creating organizations where people feel like they belong, in creating organizations that keep employees and keep them engaged. And so please feel free to share this recording or this live stream with someone in your organization who's focused on this, or just tag them in the comments below so that they know that you're thinking of them today, because this is something that a lot of HR folks, chief financial officers, chief operating officers, certainly CEOs, and even hiring managers are thinking about right now is, what do we do if we can't keep people? Now, you may have noticed in your own organization or in other organizations that there are some subgroups in your organization that turn over more rapidly than others. It might be a particular type of job that has high turnover, but it also might be a particular demographic. Maybe you struggle to keep women in certain roles or in your company in general. Maybe you struggle with attracting and retaining minority employees or LGBTQ workers, or maybe you simply don't know because you've never tracked that data. And in any of those cases, I want to tell you that there is hope, and there are ways that you can actually start to not only know what those numbers look like, but start to turn them around. So maybe for any of these reasons, or maybe you've just been watching the news lately and you've seen, there were several hate crimes that happened around the country this week. And by the way, be sure that you're giving your Asian employees, Asian American and Pacific Islander employees, and your Black employees just a little extra grace this week. They're dealing with a lot. There were hate crimes over the weekend targeting Asian women, and there was a pretty widely reported anti-Black hate crime that happened in Buffalo this week. So just keep an eye out on your employees and make sure that you're giving them the space to grieve and to mourn and to come together or to step away as they need it, because this is really tough on these communities right now. And frankly, it should be tough for all of us right now. We're living in a time when people seem increasingly divided, although I don't know that we're any more divided than we've ever been, but it seems that way. And, it should weigh heavy on all of our hearts what's happening in our country, that, domestic terrorism is, so widely just accepted as the norm right now. And so we need to do better. All of us need to do better. So make some space for your folks, because if you don't make space for them, if they feel like they're suffering alone or they're expected to perform without any acknowledgement of what they're going through, they're probably not going to stick around too long. They're going to find a place where they feel more comfortable, more welcome, and feel like they belong. But if you're in this space, hi from New Jersey. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I can't see your name, but I appreciate you're here. So if you're in one of these companies that maybe you haven't done anything around diversity and inclusion yet, maybe you're growing and you want to see, more emphasis placed on this, or maybe you're just tired of turnover, or maybe you're tired of not knowing what to do or say. Whatever the case is, just know that you're not alone. There are a lot of professionals, a lot of executives, a lot of organizations that come to me and say exactly that. Look, we want to do something, but we don't know where to start. And more importantly, we don't want to do the wrong thing. So we kind of haven't done anything yet. And if that's you, just know that you're not alone, but know that you need to do something. And so let's talk about what that something looks like. And this is really how Lead at Any Level works with our clients, corporate clients that promote from within, to help them create the kind of organization that keeps employees and keeps them engaged. And I'll just move on from there. All right, so let's go see if this works. Okay, so it's really a 4-step process, and this is really not all that different than any other process you use in your organization today. If you were doing a quality initiative, or you were doing some sort of customer service work, or you wanted to improve anything in your organization, you would probably follow the same process. So this should look pretty familiar. Now you're saying, well, if it's not that hard, why doesn't everybody do it? The answer is, I don't know, but I'm here to help you if you're looking for help in doing some of this work. So here's what it would look like if we work together on this. And hopefully, if you've got a partner that isn't me, they're helping you along the same path. So the first step, starting right at the top at 12 o'clock on this dial, is to assess, where are you currently? And that can look like a quantitative assessment, which is very data driven, like a survey tool, or it may be qualitative. Qualitative research is really about stories. It's about sentiment. It's how people are feeling. And we don't want to tell people how to feel. We want to ask them how they feel so that we can respond, and so that we can really process that and figure out where those feelings are coming from and how we can help. How we can help make our organizations the places where people want to stay and stay engaged. So assessment really needs to come first, because otherwise you don't know where you are and you don't know if you're improving. In the second step, we set targets, set goals. We figure out what's our why, how does what we're trying to do tie to our mission as an organization, and what are some of the goals and priorities that we need to look toward, that we need to work toward, based on our assessment of where we are today. Now, some organizations find out that they're doing a little better than they thought. Maybe their folks really are doing, on a personal level and an interpersonal level, a lot of work, but they don't have the right systems and structures in place. Maybe there is work to be done. Systems and structures are looking pretty good, but people don't feel comfortable having conversations. There may be instances where you've got people who, people in the in group in the company, right? I like to say that every culture is inclusive for somebody. Almost no culture is inclusive for everyone. And so you've got people who feel very included, but there are other people on the outside who don't. So once you assess, you really know who's in and who's out, who feels welcome and sense of belonging, and who doesn't. And then we can start to set targets around, well, what do we want to do about that? Who do we need to make sure we're including? Who do we need to make sure that we're involving in this process? And what would tell us that we're making improvements based on that assessment, but also based on what's important to us as a company? And then after that, then we plan, okay, well, what are we actually going to do to meet those goals and objectives? What are some quick wins? Now, quick wins are very important anytime you're implementing change, especially change that's driven by employee sentiment or employee data. And the reason quick wins are important when you're dealing with employees is they just gave you some valuable information. They just shared something with you that they were maybe a little uncomfortable sharing, or they felt a little risky about sharing. And so when we do something quickly to address some of those things that we can very quickly, move on, it starts to build trust between us and our employees around, we hear you and we want to make things better for you, and here are some steps we're taking right away because we heard you. But then in addition to those quick wins, because we can't put a band-aid on everything, some things need much larger plans and projects in place to change. So we want to also set some long-term strategies and some interim milestones so we can figure out, are we making progress along the way? And then finally, once we've planned everything, we got to go do it, because the best of intentions don't mean anything if we don't actually put our intentions into action and into practice. And so I want to be very clear about this, because sometimes people say, well, you know what? My heart's in the right place. I'm a good person. I don't need to do anything. Or I'm a good leader. I don't need to do anything. Well, that's simply not true. And I tell my audiences all the time, every single one of us wakes up in the morning believing our hearts to be in the right place. But our intentions do not matter. And our thoughts and beliefs and feelings do not matter in terms of how other people feel around us. So your heart can't be in the right place if you never move your feet. And in this process, we definitely move our feet. We talk about systems and structures and what needs to change. And we make sure that, and when I talk about systems and structures, I want to be clear. Most of these systems and structures were set up, frankly, to protect the company. And there's nothing wrong with that inherently. The problem is that a lot of places, a lot of the policies that we create, a lot of the structures that we have in place, even if we don't intend it, can sometimes give bad actors a place to hide. And what I mean by that is, if you've got somebody who's doing a lot of damage in your organization, they're causing a lot of conflict, a lot of turmoil, a lot of strife for your employees. If you have, let's say you have one manager in the group that's very toxic, um, you know, they probably know all the ways they can hide in the policies and procedures and the org chart and the structures, and basically keep getting by with the bad behavior. So we want to set up systems and structures in our organizations that don't allow for bad behavior, that don't give these folks places to hide, and that don't punish people for speaking up when something bad is happening to them at work. And then finally, we want to make sure that we're doing some training and education, not just for our executives, not just for our senior leaders, not just for our middle managers, not just for our frontline managers, but for everyone. And training, as you know, is not a one and done thing, right? We can tell people what we want them to do, but if we don't reinforce those behaviors, if we don't reinforce that change over time, then it becomes very difficult for people to remember what good looks like. It becomes very difficult for people to remember that they need to stop and pause and think about others as they're going about their work. Now, I liken this to piano lessons, right? If you wanted to learn to play the piano, you wouldn't go one time to one lesson, watch somebody else play, and then go home and be able to play with proficiency. Unless you were some sort of a savant, which very, very, very few of us are, that's just not the way it works. If you wanted to learn to play the piano, what would you do? You would start small. You would, learn a few scales. You would learn some basic techniques. You would know where the notes are, right? You would start to build your vocabulary, build your competence, build your confidence. And then over time, you would become proficient to some degree, right? You may not be a virtuoso, but you'd be able to play a few songs over time if you had the ongoing training, ongoing coaching, and you practice every day. And I think that's where, in our organization, sometimes we fall a little short with training and education, because we think, well, we trained them and now forever and ever they're going to do what we trained them to do. And that's just simply not the case. It's too easy to fall back on old habits. It's too easy to forget. So we want to continue the training and education as we're building the systems and structures that truly support our employees. But we can't let our guard down. We have to keep going, and we need to reassess periodically and set new targets and create new plans and execute on new strategies. So this really is never a one and done thing if you're talking about creating the kind of organization that keeps employees and keeps them engaged. Now, I know I've thrown a lot at you, but I want you to see that the process itself, while there's a lot to it, is really not that different from what you're probably doing in other areas of your business already. And if this is something that's important to you, if your employee turnover is too high, if you are worried about attracting and retaining the right kind of people in your organization, meaning people who will come do their best work, move you forward as a company, want to build a culture where people feel comfortable and safe and doing the right thing, if you want to create the kind of organization that really rewards not just the work that people do, but the way that they do it and the way they include others in it, if you want to create the kind of organization that can meet the demands of a changing market, can meet and reflect the needs of a changing community, then I really hope that you'll reach out to me or to another practitioner, frankly, to learn how you can do more in your organization to proactively take steps to build a culture of belonging and inclusion, because this is really important. Your workforce is changing. We've talked on this show before a number of times about how when everything changes around you, you have to change or be left behind. And my guess is whatever organization you work for, whatever company you work for, whatever your mission is, it's too important to be left behind. It's too important to to become extinct. Your clients need you, your community needs you, your employees need you. And I want to help you keep them engaged. You can book time with me at reduceturnoverstrategy.com. And that's a great time for us to talk about, what does turnover look like in your organization? What are you doing currently to reduce it? And what else might you do to ensure that you keep your employees and keep them engaged? My name is Amy Waninger. I'm with Lead at Any Level. I really want to see you succeed. Remember, leaders can be anywhere and should be everywhere. And if you're the kind of leader that wants to make a difference in your organization, I really want to talk to you. Thank you all so much for your time today.